I had a client last month who lost the house to another buyer offering the exact same price, the same mortgage amount, the same closing timeline, but the seller, they picked the other buyer immediately, not because they offered more money, but because the seller believed that that deal was safer. And here's what no one tells first-time buyers. A mortgage pre-approval does not make you look safe to a seller. It makes you look conditional. Let's go. If you're buying your first home in Canada with less than 20% down, you need to understand something that's going to fundamentally change how you make an offer. Most first-time buyers, they think a pre-approval makes them a strong buyer. Sellers, they don't see it that way, not even close, because when a seller looks at your pre-approval letter, they don't see certainty. All they see is risk. There's an appraisal risk, there's financing risk, there's employment changes, rate locks expiring, the appraisal coming in lower than the offer price, things that still need to go right for this deal to close. Now you compare that to a buyer who's not putting fuck all for conditions on the offer. That buyer looks strong immediately, or stupid, not because they're richer, because they look less fragile. That's how sellers think in this market. And it costs first-time buyers houses every single month. Here's what happened to my client a month ago. They had about $50,000 saved, great income, fully pre-approved, responsible buyers, but they were buying insured. They found a home they loved. Another buyer came in at a similar price, but that buyer didn't have any financing conditions. They removed the appraisal contingency, they removed the subject to financing, and immediately the seller side viewed that deal as more stable, more likely to close, more predictable. The seller picked certainty, not emotion, not fairness, certainty. My client lost the house they could afford because how their offer was structured, not because their pre-approval wasn't strong. And this happens constantly in the Canadian market right now. Let's break down exactly what sellers see when they look at an offer, because understanding this is the difference between losing and winning the offer on your home. A seller doesn't look at your offer and think, great, this is safe. They look at it and think, what can still go wrong? And that's a completely different mental framework. Here's what a seller's realtor will actually say to their client when comparing offers. Mr. and Mrs. Client, you have two offers at the same price. Offer A has a pre-approval letter. They have conditions to financing, inspection, and appraisal. Offer B, it's full ask, zero conditions, the same price as what the other one's offering. They can close the same time, guaranteed. Which one as a seller are you choosing? That's the actual conversation happening in sellers' meetings across Canada right now. And most buyers, first time especially, have no idea the conversation's even taking place. They think, I'm pre-approved, so I'm strong, I'm going to win this property. But pre-approval, it's not strength, it's permission to compete. That's different. And here's the thing that no one wants to talk about. In Canada, the seller doesn't see your down payment percentage. They don't know if you're putting down 5 or 20%. That's private information. What they do see is if there is or isn't a financing condition. They see whether you have a condition to an appraisal or an inspection. They see whether you're going to waive all of that or keep it in. That's what signals strength or weakness to a seller. CMHC insurance doesn't show up on your pre-approval letter. The seller won't see it. So from a competitive standpoint, the insurance isn't the problem. It's the financing condition, which if you're insured, it always makes sense to have that in play. Now, if you're putting down 5%, CMHC insurance might run you 3.6 to 3.8% of the mortgage amount. On a $500K mortgage, that's around 18 grand. 18,000 that you're paying to borrow the money from the lender that the lender doesn't fully trust. Here's the killer part. That 18 grand, it gets added to your mortgage. So you're not only paying the insurance, you're paying interest on the insurance for 30 years. That $18,000 becomes around $40,000 by the time you're done paying. So the real cost of insurance isn't in the offer competition, it's in your long-term mortgage cost. You're going to carry an extra 40 grand in debt over 30 years. That's the hidden cost most people miss. And that's the wealth building killer that no one cares to talk about. But in terms of winning offers, the insurance doesn't matter to the sellers. It's the conditions that matter. So here's the actual tension in the Canadian market. You have a pre-approval, it's an insured purchase, you're putting down 5%. Financially, you're okay. The approval is rock solid. The lender trusts you enough to give you the mortgage, but in multiple offer situations, you're conditional. Your offer depends on the appraisal coming in. Your offer depends on the inspection, possibly financing conditions. And here's where most first-time buyers make the mistake. They treat the pre-approval like strength, but the pre-approval is just the starting line. In competitive markets, the buyers who win are the ones who remove conditions. Now, what can you actually do about this if you're a first-time home buyer? I'm not telling you to panic. I'm telling you to strategize. First, understand what actually matters to the sellers. Not your down payment percentage. They can't see it. Not your pre-approval letter. They expect you to have one. What matters is, can you close with zero headaches? If not, what conditions are you creating? That's what sellers evaluate. Second, if you're conditional, that's okay, but understand the cost. A conditional offer is weaker in a bidding war. So if you're going in conditional, make sure your price is genuinely better than competitors. Don't lose on price and conditions. If you're conditional, you need another advantage. Third, if you have time before buying, remove conditions where possible. Get a pre-purchase inspection before making an offer. That removes the inspection contingency. If your pre-approval is rock solid, remove the financing contingency. Yeah, it's riskier for you, but sellers see that and think, this buyer isn't hedging, they're committed. That commitment signals confidence. Confidence matters. Fourth, show proof of funds. Don't just submit a pre-approval letter. Attach a bank statement showing your down payment and it's actually sitting in your account. Real money sitting liquid, it creates a sense of confidence. I had a client who beat out 5 other offers by submitting a screenshot of their down payment sitting in a TFSA. 5 other offers, 1 document, that's the power of proof. Fifth, work with a realtor who understands seller psychology. Not all realtors are created equal. A bad realtor just submits paperwork and hopes for the best. A good realtor packages certainty. When they submit your offer, they can say this buyer has proof of funds sitting in their account, they're pre-approved with X lender, they're ready to close in 120 days. They included a personal letter. That's how you package an offer. That's how you compete in a hot market. 6, understand the wealth building trade-off. Here's something a lot of people don't think about. The smartest financial move for you, which is keeping extra cash as a reserve, is actually a strategically weaker move for winning offers because sellers, they only care about deal certainty. They don't care about your financial safety. So you have to choose. Do you want maximum financial flexibility or do you want to win in a competitive market? Most people can't have both. That's the real tension here. And here's the thing. The strongest financial position is not max leverage. It's controlled leverage. The strongest buyer is not the person who removes every single condition and stretches to their maximum approval. It's the person who can still breathe after they get the keys, because here's what happens to people who max out their approval and remove all conditions. They buy at the top of their budget. Rates tick up 6 months later. They're house poor. They can't handle emergencies. They can't invest in their business. They can't take advantage of opportunities. They're surviving, barely, not building. Compare that to someone who buys at 80% of their approval. They keep an emergency reserve and they stay conditional. Lower mortgage, monthly payments manageable, and the emergency fund, it's still intact. Opportunities, they're available, but they might lose offers in a bidding war, and that's the real game. Their emergency fund, it's still intact. Opportunities, still accessible, but they might lose offers in a bidding war, and that's the real game. That's where wealth building actually starts, because sellers, they can feel the difference. There's controlled leverage that shows up as certainty and max leverage that shows up as desperation. And sellers are going to choose certainty. So here's the takeaway from this video. A pre-approval gets you in the game, but conditions lose offers. Down payment percentage doesn't matter to the sellers. They can't see it. Down payment visibility does. So proof of funds matters. Lender strength matters. Remove contingencies matter. Certainty definitely matters. And the more you understand how sellers actually think, the stronger you position yourself before you ever make an offer. The best time to be strong in the bidding war isn't during the bidding war. It's 3 months before, when you're deciding how many conditions you're willing to accept. Because in Canada, the game isn't about your down payment percentage. It's about how many risks you're making the seller carry in negotiations. Every condition you remove, that's leverage. Every proof point you add, that's confidence. Every percentage point of financial flexibility you're willing to sacrifice, that's power. So if you're about to go get pre-approved, do yourself a favor, message me first, but then think strategically about what conditions you can actually remove. Get pre-inspections done. Build your down payment proof. Work with a major lender. Partner with a realtor who understands the game and they can do their job, because in Canada, the strongest offer isn't the richest one. It's the most certain and well-packaged offer. If this video just showed you what sellers actually see in a pre-approval, hit subscribe, because this is exactly what I break down, how to actually win in the Canadian real estate market, not just compete in it. And when you're done with this video, check out my last one where I broke down what's actually happening in the mortgage market today. I'll see you there.